into this small public council meeting today where we have one item on the agenda. So first of all, I haven't received any apologies ahead of this meeting. However, looks as though at the moment, possibly Gary Kelleher.
He's just
coming. Oh, right. Anyone else that is missing at the moment? I don't think so.
Alexa?
Alexa, yes. Alexa may be late. Yeah. So an apology. Oh, is it an apology for lateness? Yeah. Apology for lateness. Then I can move that for Alexa Ford.
And Lloyd.
Oh, and Lloyd, of course. We have actually got an apology for Lloyd. So we've got an apology.
I'm happy to move.
Yep. You're moving. I'll second. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks. And confirming the agenda then, we have one matter on the agenda and we can confirm.
There are two matters. One's in confidential.
Oh, that's true. One's
In committee, sorry.
loaded.
Yeah. Sorry.
Conflicts of interest, you're reminded of those and to stand aside if you have any matters for council consideration. Then 4.1 is our submission to the freshwater parts of the proposed Otago Regional Policy Statement. And we have today the author Anita Dorr joining us online. So you've got the report there and hopefully have had time to read through that as well. Anita, do you want to just touch on this one and why you felt it was important that a paper came forward?
Yeah, certainly. And just firstly, just thank you for giving me some of your time today. This is something that we've been intending to do, but just running out of hours in the day. So this came actually about after a conversation with Councillor Wilson, just around some of those timeframes in the RPS. What some of the modelling that we're doing at the moment, which is only two quite narrow scenarios, shows is that those 2030 timeframes unlikely to be met. I think it's really important to acknowledge that a hearings panel might ask for a lot more than just GMP and GMP plus, which might mean you get there by 2030. But there are other factors such as, lag times and things like that. So what we've proposed is what I would probably call a reasonably neutral submission. It doesn't necessarily take a position more than just setting out some of the facts and allowing the introduction of some evidence around the work that we're doing on the land and water plan. So there was just a few matters, I'm just trying to find it, in paragraph 8 that we think that the submission should focus on. It will be reasonably short, but it does just open up that opportunity for some information for the panel to enable them to make the most informed decision that they can.
Thanks, Anita. Welcome, Alexa, as well. So are there any questions then at this point? Yep, yeah. Councillor Sunvall.
Yeah, thanks. And Anita might be able to clarify that. I just note in section 6, it says that for those two areas, achieving the freshwater visions by 2030 are potentially unlikely. But section 8A says they are anticipated to be achieved. I was a bit confused by those two statements. Is there a clarification around that?
Yeah, that's apologies. That's a midnight writing of a paper, and 8A should say are not anticipated to be achieved. Apologies.
Thank you. That makes sense then. Thanks.
Well done, Alan. Good spotting. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I would just like some clarification of what these targets actually mean. Are they aspirational? Is it like saying pest-free by 2050? Or so what is the status of these targets?
Can you hear that all right, Anita?
Yep, sure. And I'm just going to pull up and read to you what the NPS says. So the NPS says every regional council must develop long-term visions actions. That's clause 3.31. And then clause 3.32 B says must set goals that are ambitious but reasonable, that is difficult to achieve but not impossible, and identify a time frame to achieve those goals that is both ambitious and reasonable. For example, and then it says, for example, 30 years. So that's the point that we're making, is that the modelling that we're doing is not across everything at this point in time. It's quite a narrow focus, and that's showing us that we're unlikely. But a hearings panel might ask us to do more, or require us to do more, put more in the plan. That means we get there. Or the modelling might change as it continues to develop. That shows that we will get there. So that's why we're not suggesting that we have an alternative date. And we're not necessarily saying 2030 is completely unachievable. It's just based on what we're seeing at this point in time.
Yeah, and through the chair, a subsequent question. Yeah, so like I would have thought that 2030 possibly that's exactly what it was. It's difficult, but still potentially achievable. Is that not what it is?
Well, the modelling showing us that under the two scenarios we're modelling, we're not going to get there. If we were modelling different things, it might show us something different.
Unlikely or something.
We're not anticipating achieving it, and that's the message we're sharing with the community in those two areas as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess as well, through lodging a submission, it kind of gives us a placeholder, I suppose, and if we have any new information as well, then we can always touch on that as well. Either way, so Councillor Malcolm, the unknown.
Yeah, and I assume that those goals that we did have in place to meet that 2030 was around the known science that we had at the time, and as we're developing these new processes, we're saying the science is showing that there is a bigger goal or was a bigger task ahead of us. The comment you made, Anita, around the hearings panel may look at our GMP and our GMP plus, but add extra actions to be taken over and above those. At what stage do we actually test the community's ability and capacity to actually complete those? Where does that come in?
Yeah, so that's part of what we're doing now. Actually, with the consultation we're doing, it's these are the actions. How many are you doing? How many are you planning on doing? How many don't make sense? So we're doing that now. What you'll get in the hearings panel, is you'll get some submitters saying, "Oh, I see you need to do more," and you'll get some that'll say, "Oh, I see you're asking us to do too much." So you'll get both ends of the spectrum, which will give the panel the ability. Well, I anticipate you will. I don't know, but that's generally what happens. So you'll get the hearings panel, able to make a decision with quite a wide scope, which is why I'm saying they may direct more or direct different. That could result in different outcomes. But part of what we're doing now is just testing how many of those actions are being undertaken, how much of a step change it is for people, and whether they're planning to do it. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're done. Councillor Noon. Okay.
Thanks, Madam
Yep.
Chair. My question is just around the iwi potential connection under paragraph 9, and sort of a question around, because this process this is our RPS, and in normal circumstances, I can understand where you would have some consultation with iwi to develop a submission. Yep. But in this situation, I would have thought that both entities in their own right would be wanting to submit, but clearly for us to share the submission with iwi, no surprises type approach, fine. But I would have thought that the submission would need to be from this entity rather than the comment in there that we haven't discussed it with iwi. So I'm just trying to clarify. Do you understand where I'm coming from, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And it's not actually saying, paragraph 9 is not actually saying we're going to consult with iwi, but it just raises the point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
can I
think
just clarify and you're exactly right, Councillor Noon. Iwi are preparing or have lodged their own submissions, and we've got no visibility over that until it's lodged and received and as a formal submission. And you're right, we should, once you're in a notified process, you take your position, and that is what it is. That was more around the partnership and the relationship rather than the submission. So it's I suppose just acknowledging that if we're going to lodge a submission, then it would be a good idea to give them a heads up that it's coming, because it is likely to conflict with their aspirations and the MPS that talks about change within a generation or within 10 years.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Anita. Kate.
Thanks, Anita. I think from what you're saying that you're recommending a submission be lodged in order to ensure that there is scope. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
And the other bit that I'm just wondering whether we raise in the scope, because it is a scope question. If no one raises a submission point, the commissioners, I think, are tied to the action they can take, or maybe that's been changed in the Freshwater Commission process.
Yeah, it has been changed. So the freshwater, if you recall back, the freshwater panel can make submissions out of scope, and they are one of the few sets of appeals
Decisions.
that can go to the Environment Court. So they can make decisions. Yep.
Okay. Well, but the other part I think that we want to raise in scope, because again, it may get a cross. These are out for cross submissions as well, or not?
There will be a further submissions process. Yes.
So I think raising the other thing that could happen in a catchment, especially as big as the Upper Lakes, would be sub-catchment dates, because what I think the issue here isn't the whole of the Catlins, for example. It's part of the, say, the Owaka or the Tahakopa may have issues, but the others don't. And so there could be a more nuanced thing in there, and maybe. I'm just wondering.
That would be, so that would need to be a whole specific policy drafted on. So we can set FMUs at freshwater visions at FMU part of an FMU or a catchment level, but we haven't done that. We've gone to the FMU or roadway level. That would require quite a bit of work to suggest an alternative vision.
I don't want to create more work. I suppose I'm offering up scope to a solution which would require work at a later point, not immediately.
Yeah, so what I will say is that through the Land and Water Plan, what we're anticipating and in fact planning for is that in order to meet divisions in the RPS, there'll be different actions in different parts of catchments.
Yeah.
Rohays. So that's exactly where you're going with that. So we know, for example, that Lake Hayes will want and have asked us for different actions or additional actions to address the issues in Lake Hayes. That might be either in addition to or different to some of the other parts of the Dunstan Rohay, the Lindis, for example. So that you will see that nuance in the Land and Water Plan, and collectively they will drive to the vision that's in the RPS.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to support a motion along that whenever you're ready, Madam Chair.
I don't quite understand that motion, but okay. We have got some recommendations there.
Oh, there, sorry.
Yeah. So there is, I think we're getting quite close to them because we do need to probably press on today as well. Can't see any other hands up. Got recommendations to note the report, note the main points to be considered for a submission, decides whether to lodge a submission, so that would be us deciding or not, and then authorise any submissions to be approved by the chair under delegated authority and lodged by 29th of November. So yeah, they're there already, Kate.
Sorry, I had read those. I think the point that we want to do is giving scope to for an extension of the timeframes is the bit that we're going to submit on. It says on, doesn't the recommendation require us to fill that bit in?
Yeah, so if I just draw your attention to paragraph 8, so the submission would be setting out those visions by 2030. The current modelling for periphyton for the two scenarios shows that meeting those draft target attribute dates is unlikely, not recommending an alternative date. The submission just is for awareness and and noting that if on-ground mitigations, in addition to those included in the GMP and GMP plus scenarios, are included, the visions are potentially still appropriate. And as modelling inputs are refined, future modelling may show the visions are able to be met. So, it's not recommending a different date, because that is a little bit, there's no black and white answer to this. It's not that we won't get by 2030, but we will by 32 or 38 or whatever it is. It's just providing that opportunity.
Sorry, hello. Hi, Harrison. Can I just check on one question there, please, Madam Chair? The question is, you can get somewhere, but it's whether the cost benefit of getting there may give an unintended consequence that you don't want. So it's not just to me that you can get there with the modelling, it's that it makes a sensible decision to get there with the modelling.
Yeah, and I suppose what I would just note to that point is that we've been really clear that this plan won't ask for land use change, because we don't have the data to support it necessarily, which is why the GMP and the GMP plus options are reasonably narrow. And part of that is not asking people to make economic decisions in advance of the information that we're still collecting, so that we don't send people in the wrong direction.
Thank you. We got Michael Laws and then Kevin.
I've just got a question to ask. I'm sorry, I haven't got the submission in front of me, so I'm going a bit blind, but I assume that one of the reasons that 2030 is unlikely to be reached is because of changes in government policy or additional work. I mean, we've given the resources to this organisation to make sure it can meet its statutory obligations, and I would have thought getting to 2030 was one of them. So what are the reasons why we can't get there in your modelling?
No, it's not about government regulation. It's just about the when we've and unfortunately Tom Dyer was going to join us, but he's just had a child lose their stomach in his car, so he's not able to do it. So you'll have to excuse my quite basic explanation. But when we've done the periphyton modelling, you've got to select a likelihood coefficient basically, and we've chosen one that says that we're even with GMP and GMP plus, we will see some movement, but not to where the target attribute state lines up. If we chose another, it actually says all of our rivers and lakes are at band A for periphyton. That doesn't align with our state of the environment reporting. So we know that one number doesn't work, and one shows improvement, but not a long way. If we were modelling, significant land use change, it would show something different. It's just about the way the modelling has been set up, and aligning that with the state of the environment information that we have.
Is that our modelling, or you mean the state's modelling?
It's our modelling. The governance group will remember that periphyton modelling, some guidance came out from central government. It's not a great fit for Otago. We looked at a couple of other options for periphyton modelling. They weren't any better. So it is national modelling. It doesn't necessarily represent the South Island particularly well, but it's the only modelling we've got.
So are we saying that in our submission, Anita?
We weren't going to go into that much detail, but the submission will give us scope to talk about the limitations of the national model if we need to do that.
Because the first question they're going to ask is, why aren't you going to make it? And then I guess you're going to say pretty much just what you've said to me now. So it's just in any submission, it may as well head them off at the pass and include a couple of paragraphs as to why.
Yeah, so we will, it'll be far more eloquent than that, and Tom will have it more correct than I did. But yeah, we just want to give ourselves scope to introduce that if we need to. The modelling, as we said, the modelling might start to shift. There's not a lot of time between now and when the plan's going to come out, so I don't know that it will. But we absolutely just want to be able to ensure that the hearings panel hearing the RPS has some of the information that we're using to support the land and water plan.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin.
You're just on 8E. I just wondered on the wording of that, the modelling inputs are refined. Future modelling results may show divisions are still appropriate. But in fact, they may show that they're not appropriate. So, I mean, that's what you're determining at the moment, that they're with what you're doing at the
Yeah.
moment. So I just wonder if that needs to be just reworked when we do our submission to show it can be either appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah, I think that's right. When we said it's kind of like a placeholder, and we'll be able to refine further exactly what our position is. But at the moment, it sounds like we're not going to meet those requirements for setting the right limits, I suppose, because we're probably not going to be able to get there on the track we're on. But yeah, hey, maybe we will be able to. But Anita, do you want to go into that any more? And I think Tom might have joined us. Is that right?
He's still
Di?
joining,
Oh,
so he
okay,
must have
yeah.
no problem joining.
Yeah, so I guess what I would just say in relation to that, Councillor Malcolm, is paragraph E just goes back to paragraph B, that at the moment the modelling for those two showing it's unlikely, but if we do more modelling, it might refine to show that it is appropriate. So it's starting from that position that we don't think it is, but it might change to show that actually it is okay. That's why it's phrased that way. So it's basically the two things that sit together, and it is only in relation to those two 2030 timeframes.
Yeah, I suppose that could it could be phrased that it could actually determine the time frame required.
Yeah, yep, we could change those words slightly. Yep.
Yeah, so Tom's on now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
Thanks, Tom, for joining us there. Anita's done a pretty good job, I think, of explaining technically where we're at with this one. I'm not sure how much of that discussion you heard. I think overall we're pretty, well, yeah, we've had all our questions answered. But if there's anything, I don't know if you heard all of that or not, and you wanted to say something, you can in relation to all the questions we've asked. Otherwise, we're going to move on to the resolutions.
Yeah, no, I didn't. And sounds like you've got it all under control.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Rightio then. So they are there. Does somebody care to move those?
I'm happy to move, but three becomes that we lodge a submission around the points made in paragraph 8.
Yeah.
Happy to see that.
With one of the words changed, wasn't it?
Oh, there was a not instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not anticipated
Yeah.
to be achieved.
With that change. Yep. Okay. Great. Okay. So we have the mover and the seconder, and you've recorded what that is, Di. Great. All in favour?
Can I just make a comment first?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, all I was going to say was we can't sugarcoat this because this is something we've inherited and we're trying to build the case around making decisions on evidence in a timely manner. And I think this is all we're doing here is alerting the decision makers that this is where we're at. We're under some pressure. We're unlikely to meet the time frame, but obviously they're the decision makers. They'll make a call, but at least we're informing them where we're at this stage. So.
Yeah, total transparency. Good point. And sorry, I didn't give you your right
That's
of
all good.
reply. Yep.
Yeah.
And so Kevin.
Yeah, and I'd just like to thank Anita and her team for bringing this forward to us, because it is absolutely critical, and to sit back and say, well, actually, we need to bring this forward is really good. But it just highlights to me that probably the extreme pressure that we're actually putting on to the science team at the moment, that we've got to be really cognizant of that and make sure that we are not over pressurising those groups of staff at the moment. So well done. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, thank you. On to the next part of the meeting, which is a resolution to exclude the public for
Happy to move.
Yep, okay.
See,
Second, first and second there, Kevin and Andrew. All in favour then?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And that brings the public part of the meeting to a close. Thank you.